I overheard my family's plan to humiliate me at Christmas. That night, Mom called, furious. "Where are you?" I said calmly. "Did you enjoy my gift?" I've always felt that Christmas was about warmth and family. But in December, I learned my own family was planning to publicly humiliate and remove me from their existence, all in the name of love. My name is Clara Bennett, I am 29, and Christmas used to be my absolute favorite holiday. Growing up in the Bennett household, festivities were always lavish. But as the black sheep with a jewelry company rather than a corporate profession, I always felt like I had to work harder to fit in. Then, in December, I arrived early to help with preparations and overheard a discussion that completely wrecked everything. My own family, the ones I loved, were about to publicly humiliate me at Christmas dinner. Then, while I sat there distraught, they decided to empty out my childhood bedroom. The Bennetts of Greenwich, Connecticut were known for three things: money, power, and unrealistic expectations. My father, Richard Bennett, started his investing business from the ground up, which is the type of success story that everyone admires. My mother, Margaret, came from a wealthy family and has served on enough charity boards to fill a small notepad. Then there were my siblings. Ethan, 33, has flawlessly followed in his father's footsteps. Olivia, 31, became the corporate attorney our parents used to boast about at country club events. And then there was me, Clara Bennett, who was meant to round out this beautiful family trio. But nevertheless, I became the family's disappointment. Since childhood, my strategy has been clear. Attend a renowned institution, earn a law or finance degree, and then join either the family firm or a corporation good enough to mention at dinner parties. I faithfully attended Columbia University. However, during my sophomore year, I took a metals class as an elective, and something clicked. For the first time, I felt fully alive as I created with my hands. By senior year, instead of applying to law schools, I was selling my handmade jewelry at campus gatherings. The family's reaction was quick and harsh. My father refused to talk to me for 4 months. My mother organized meetings with family connections for law firm recruiting. My siblings alternated between awkward silence and criticizing me about wasting my potential. Despite their objections, I graduated and utilized my funds to rent a small studio apartment in Brooklyn and establish my first workshop. I ate ramen for months, worked 16-hour days, and meticulously established Clara designs from scratch. 6 years later, my designs were available in boutiques around New York and New Jersey. I was finally making a good life doing what I enjoyed. Not that my family saw this as true success. Every family gathering had the same topic regarding my career. Mom would sigh and say, "Are you still doing that jewelry thing?" Dad would respond with, "When you're ready to start serious about your future, let me know." Ethan would offer to go over my books as if I were operating a business rather than playing one. Olivia would graciously give me corporate job postings for executive assistant roles, as if my degree and business expertise were irrelevant. Christmas in the Bennett home was an especially extravagant occasion. My parents possessed a colonial estate with 6 bedrooms, a grand staircase ideal for family portraits, and a dining room that could accommodate 22 people. Every December, my mother changed it into something from an architectural magazine. Professional decorators imported decorations and color palettes that varied annually. These parties focused on status rather than celebration. The guest list includes extended relatives, business partners, and significant acquaintances. The discourse centered on promotions, holidays to premium destinations, and which Ivy League institutions were pursuing which students. In this situation, my small jewelry business might have easily been a lemonade stand instead. Nonetheless, every year I tried. I wore nice clothing that I could hardly afford. I prepared responses about my business that sounded more impressive than they actually were. I brought painstakingly made presents that were frequently returned or tucked away. I arrived with handmade cookies that remained untouched beside the professional caterer's offerings. When I discussed my latest collection, I had to deal with polite smiles and rapid subject changes. This Christmas was really meaningful to my folks. Relatives from the West Coast and Europe were arriving, some of whom had not visited in years. My mother had been planning it since August, employing more housekeeping help and remodeling the guest rooms. When she phoned me in November about the gathering, I heard true joy in her voice for the first time. "Clara, everyone will be here this year. Even Grandma Eleanor is traveling in from London. We need to show a united family front." That slight suggestion of inclusion prompted me to step up my efforts. I spent 4 months creating a unique selection of bespoke items for each attendee. Cufflinks with the design from my father's first business card. A lovely necklace showcasing my mother's favorite flowers. For my siblings, I made similar bracelets with subtle symbolism from our upbringing. Carefully designed pieces for extended family members based on their preferences and characteristics. I even invested in new business cards with a discreet gold foil logo and packaging to impress the Bennetts. Perhaps this is the year they finally recognize my business as legitimate. Perhaps this is the Christmas when I finally feel like I belong in my own family. The week before Christmas, I completed the last of my holiday special orders, packed up my family gifts, and drove my used Subaru from Brooklyn to Greenwich, arriving at the family estate about 2:15 p.m. on December 18th. Despite everything, I remained hopeful. Maybe this time will be different. I had no clue that this visit would forever alter the path of my life, my connection with my family, and my perception of what Christmas truly meant. I arrived into my parents' circular driveway at 2:15 p.m. The mansion had already been adorned for Christmas, with professionally fitted white lights outlining every architectural detail, enormous wreaths on each window, and two perfectly symmetrical decorated trees flanking the front door. A crew of landscapers was putting the final touches on the outside decorations. I grabbed my overnight bag and the box holding examples of my present jewelry pieces, intending to show my mother how much attention I had put into each item. Maybe this is the year she finally recognizes my artistic skills. Rosa, the housekeeper, answered the door with a pleasant grin. Unlike my family, Rosa had always expressed real interest in my jewelry company, proudly wearing a modest silver bracelet I had given her years ago. "It's lovely to see you, Miss Clara. Your mom and sister are in the kitchen with the caterer." I thanked her and walked inside the spotless house, noting beautiful floral arrangements on every surface and new furnishings in the living area. The kitchen had recently been remodeled with bright white marble and stainless steel appliances, giving it the appearance of an operating room rather than a kitchen. My mother and Olivia were hunched over a tablet with a man dressed in a chef coat. They hardly looked up as I walked in. "Clara, finally," my mother remarked, without moving to hug me. "The guest room in the East Wing is ready for you. Not your old room. This year we required more storage." No greeting. No. "How was your drive?" There was no mention of the fact that my former room had served as my bedroom for the previous 19 years. "Hello, Mom." "Olivia, the house looks lovely," I said, wanting to start things off well. Olivia cast a short peek upward. "You seem exhausted. The city must be wearing you down." This was not an inquiry, but rather a judgment disguised as sympathy. I faked a grin. "Actually, business has been excellent. Very busy with holiday orders. I brought some samples of the presents I created for everyone to show you both." My mother waved her hand dismissively. "We are in the process of finalizing the menu. Maybe later. The caterer requires our attention." The caterer, a tall guy with a well-trimmed beard, gave me a compassionate glance. I'd plainly been discarded. "Certainly, no issue. I'll simply take my belongings upstairs." Neither of them answered as I exited the kitchen. The old knot of disappointment clenched in my gut, but I forced it down. This wasn't anything new. I only wanted to find the proper time to connect with them. After settling into the guest room, I went to seek out my father and brother, expecting for a more welcoming response. As I reached my father's study, I overheard numerous voices in what sounded like a heated discussion. I was just about to knock when I heard my name. "Clara needs to understand that this jewelry hobby is not a sustainable future," my father said forcefully. I paused, my hand millimeters from the door. "That is why I invited Stephen," my brother Ethan said. "As a financial advisor, he can provide actual numbers throughout the intervention. Show her how tenuous her status is in comparison to a genuine profession." Intervention. My pulse began racing as I cautiously positioned myself beside the half-open door, out of sight but definitely audible. "Do you truly believe an intervention at Christmas dinner is the best approach?" This voice belonged to my Uncle Daniel, my father's younger brother. "It's the perfect time," my mother added. I hadn't noticed she'd left the kitchen. "With the entire family there, she will feel enough pressure to finally make a sound decision." "I've already spoken with Gregory at the firm," my father explained. "He can open a place for her in the marketing department. Nothing challenging, but it will provide structure and a decent compensation." My sister Olivia's voice joined in. "I think we should be really frank. The last time I recommended she look into other choices, she talked about how her Instagram followers had grown as if that was a measure of success." They all chuckled, the sound piercing through me like glass. "What exactly are you going to say?" Uncle Daniel inquired, still sounding hesitant. "We'll wait until after the main course," my mother said, her voice changing to the tone she used when preparing charity galas. "Richard will express our anxiety for Clara's future. Then Ethan will introduce Stephen, who will provide a quick financial comparison of her so-called firm to a corporate position." "I've gathered some numbers," Ethan explained. Based on her apartment size and lifestyle, she can barely make $35,000 a year. Stephen will contrast it with entry-level corporate roles that start at $70,000. They had been studying me and determining my value based on the size of my residence. The violation seemed tangible, like a strike to the chest. "I still don't understand why this needs to be done publicly at Christmas dinner," Uncle Daniel said. "Because she needs to feel the weight of family expectations," my mother explained calmly. "When she sees everyone's worry, she will finally realize how her decisions influence the family's reputation." The Whitman's daughter recently became a junior partner at Sullivan & Cromwell, and our daughter sells trinkets at craft fairs. It's embarrassing. Trinkets. Craft fairs. They had no idea I had progressed beyond those years and was now supplying to reputable boutiques and obtaining frequent custom requests. They hadn't bothered to inquire. "What happens if she refuses?" Uncle Daniel inquired. A long hush ensued before my father spoke. "Then we make it clear that our financial support ends completely." I nearly gasped out before catching myself. What kind of financial help is there? I had been completely self-sufficient since graduation, something they would have noticed if they had paid attention to my actual life. "While she is at dinner, I have arranged for the staff to clear out her childhood bedroom completely," my mom said. "Cousin Vanessa needs the space, and it is time Clara understood she cannot keep one foot in each world." My eyesight became blurry with tears. My childhood bedroom, which was packed with memorabilia, notebooks and keepsakes, was to be cleared out as I suffered through a public humiliation. "She still has those ridiculous participation trophies from grade school art classes displayed on the bookshelf," Olivia observed with a giggle, as if they supported my decision to give up a real job for this jewelry hobby. "Did you see what she wore for Thanksgiving?" My mother joined in. "That handmade dress that looked like something from a thrift store." If I was going to insist on this creative lifestyle, I should at least dress appropriately when representing the family, or so they believed. The outfit was developed by a friend who was starting a small fashion brand. I wore it proudly in support of her efforts. "Well, maybe this intervention will finally get through to her," Ethan concluded. 29 is not too late to start over with a respectable career." "I have the perfect analogy prepared," my mother replied, proud of herself. "I'm going to tell her that her little jewelry business is like the macaroni art we used to hang on the refrigerator. Cute as a childhood phase, but not something to build a life around." They all laughed again, and I could hear glasses clinking in a toast. I stepped away from the door quietly, tears flowing down my cheeks. Every statement cut through years of trying to win their approval, years of shrinking myself to match their expectations, and years of seeking affirmation that was plainly never going to arrive. Their objectives were crystal clear: ambush me, humiliate me in front of the entire extended family, compel me to relinquish my business, and remove me from the family house on Christmas Day. I wandered back to the guest room in a trance, locked the door behind me, and collapsed to the floor, my back against the bed. The lovely jewelry items I'd made for them lay in their velvet boxes, each signifying hours of effort, thought, and love that they'd never appreciate or comprehend. For the first time, I could see with crystal clarity what my family thought of me and my decisions. This was neither rough love nor misdirected worry. This was control, manipulation, and a basic disregard for who I truly was. I can't recall packing my overnight bag. I do not recall walking down the rear stairs to avoid being noticed. I don't recall the brief talk with Rosa, during which I murmured something about an emergency in the city. The next vivid recollection I have is of sitting in my car at a highway rest stop, my hands trembling so terribly that I could hardly grasp my phone. I contacted Emily, my best friend from college, and the person who assisted me in setting up my first jewelry stand at a local market. She answered the second ring. "Hello, Clara. Are you already in the family complex of doom? How awful has it been this year?" The sound of her voice, so familiar and compassionate, pierced through the shock that had numbed me. I fell into tears, scarcely able to form sentences between sobs. They were planning an intervention at Christmas dinner, financial shaming, clearing out my room. "Whoa, slow down," Emily said, her voice quickly changing to concern. "Where are you now? Are you safe?" I gazed about at the well-lit rest area, where generic Christmas music played weakly from outside speakers. "I am at a rest stop." I left. I couldn't remain after what I had heard. "Good. You should not be driving so upset. Okay, just breathe for a minute." I followed her advice, taking many deep breaths as she patiently waited on the phone. After a few minutes, I was able to calmly describe all I had overheard. Emily listened without interrupting, and then said just what I needed to hear. Those utter devils, Clara, you realize none of what they said is true, right? Your business is genuine and prosperous. You are both talented and hardworking. They're just too focused on their limited idea of success to recognize it. But what if they're correct? I muttered, old insecurities resurfacing. What if I'm simply playing at business while everyone else is pursuing serious careers? Are you kidding me, Clara? You declined wholesale orders last month because you were at full manufacturing capacity. You have a wait list for bespoke items. You have recently recruited your first part-time helper. Those are not the signs of a failing business or hobby. She was correct. While I had minimized my achievement in front of my family to avoid criticism or having to justify my decisions, the truth was that Clara Designs had grown consistently, year after year. I had just been approached by a big shop about stocking a diffusion line of my most successful items. I was thinking of renting a larger workshop area to meet the expansion. Why do I still care what others think? I asked, brushing away tears. Why, after all these years of ridicule and criticism, am I still seeking their approval? Because they're your family, Emily answered softly, and because they trained you from infancy to judge your value by their standards. Breaking that conditioning is a difficult task. As we talked, memories of other dismissals and humiliations surfaced, the time my mother introduced me to her friends as still finding her way when I was 24. The business school graduation where my father spent the entire dinner discussing Ethan's new promotion. And the Thanksgiving when Olivia asked if I needed money for proper clothes in front of everyone. Each episode had hurt, but I had always made explanations for them and worked harder to get their favor. Would you like to stay with me tonight? Emily offered. You shouldn't be alone after this. Thanks, but I believe I need my own place to process. I will contact you tomorrow once I have gotten some sleep. After we hung up, I drove back to my Brooklyn apartment on autopilot. My family perceived the little two-bedroom as a symbol of failure, but when I shut the door behind me, it seemed like a shelter. This room, paid for solely by my own labor, symbolized a freedom they would never comprehend. I strolled through the apartment in a fog, focusing on the facts of my real life, rather than the fictitious failing that my family had created. The wall was covered with framed press clippings from design blogs and local magazines that had promoted my work. My home studio has a well-organized process. The spreadsheets reflect 6 years of gradually growing income. The portfolio includes customer testimonials and repeat customers. I opened my laptop and checked the email that I had been putting off responding to for 3 weeks. Sterling & Sage, a major store, offered a big chance to exhibit a collection of my works in their spring catalog, with a minimum purchase that would treble my yearly earnings. I was unsure about increasing output while preserving quality. But then, the decision seemed apparent. This was a realistic business opportunity that any serious entrepreneur would recognize as significant. I glanced at childhood photographs still on my bookshelves, including my family at the beach when I was 11, everyone smiling for the camera, and my high school graduation, with my parents proudly surrounding me. Were those genuine moments or staged performances for public consumption? Had they ever genuinely embraced me for who I was? That night I scarcely slept, alternately crying, angry, and experiencing a weird feeling of clarity when the agony subsided. By dawn, fatigued but calmer, I understood I had to make a basic decision: continue chasing acceptance that would never come, or emphasize my own well-being and value. For the first time, the answer was plain. I deserved more than what occurred yesterday. I deserved more than what they had planned. I deserved to be recognized and cherished for who I truly was, not who they wanted me to be. The insight did not instantaneously remove 29 years of emotional training, but it did provide a tiny, firm foundation on which I could stand and start building something new. The next morning I awoke with puffy eyes and unusual clarity. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother and a text message that simply said, "Where are you? The caterer need final numbers. Don't worry about my hasty departure. There are no questions concerning my health, just the logistics for her ideal Christmas party." I put down the phone without replying and poured myself a cup of coffee. As I sat at my modest kitchen table, surrounded by jewelry designs and purchase forms, an idea began to shape in my head. For once, I would not be emotional or impulsive. I would be smart and methodical, just as I had been while starting my business. First, I phoned my therapist, Dr. Lang, and described the scenario, requesting an emergency session. Fortunately, she had an opening that afternoon. "What you overheard was emotional abuse, Clara," she said during our session. "Their planned intervention was not about helping you, but about controlling you and bringing you back in line with their expectations." "But they're my family," I murmured, the words sounding hollow even as I spoke. "Families should provide love, support, and respect, she added. Being connected by blood does not give somebody the power to belittle you or influence your life decisions. You established a thriving creative business on your own terms. That merits praise, not interference. We spent the rest of the session talking about healthy boundaries and the pain that comes with embracing family members for who they are, not who we wish they were. By the end, I had created an emotional framework to support the practical strategy that was taking shape in my head. Back in my flat, I devised a thorough action plan, breaking everything down into small steps. Step 1. Cancel my presence at the family Christmas party without contacting them directly. When I didn't show up, they would find out about it. Step 2. Accept Sterling and Sage's offer to include my work in their spring catalog. This was a business choice I was considering anyhow, but the timing felt both symbolic and practical. Step 3. Plan an alternate Christmas party with my chosen circle of friends who have consistently supported my aspirations and appreciated my work. Step 4. Schedule delivery of the family gifts I had already produced, together with customized messages, to my parents' home on Christmas Eve, when I was anticipated to arrive. Step 5. Set explicit boundaries for any future encounters with my family, including what behaviors I will and will not tolerate. Step 6. Retrieve my childhood belongings from my parents' home before they are thrown. The final phase offered the most difficult obstacle. I phoned a legal acquaintance who specializes in property rights for guidance. She reinforced my fears. Since I moved out years ago, everything I left in my parents' home may be deemed abandoned property. However, she advised writing a certified letter declaring unequivocally that I did not leave my personal property and planned to collect it, which would serve as a legal record of my desire. I wrote the letter right away, describing particular objects of emotional importance in my childhood bedroom, such as notebooks, picture albums, artwork, and jewelry-making materials from my early years. I sent it certified mail that afternoon. Next, I phoned Emily to tell her about my ideas and beg for her assistance. Without hesitation, she gave us her family's vacation cottage in the Catskills for our alternative Christmas party. "It's beautiful in the winter," she remarked. "There's a large stone fireplace, enough bedrooms for everyone, and it's only 2.5 hours from the city. My parents seldom use it for Christmas since they travel to Florida." I contacted the friends who had become my true support system over the years. Noah, my first retail partner who had given my jewelry a chance in his boutique. Claire, a fellow maker who shared studio space with me during my second year of business, and Adam, Emily's husband, who had assisted in the construction of my display racks and website. Each quickly consented to participate in what Claire named our chosen family Christmas. The executive at Sterling and Sage was astonished, but delighted with my rapid acceptance of their offer. We planned a meeting in early January to discuss designs and manufacturing timeframes. For the gifts, I used a high-end delivery service that specialized in personalized gift presentations. The owner was captivated by my narrative and promised to personally deliver each meticulously wrapped piece on Christmas Eve, ensuring they arrived at the ideal time. With each stage done, I experienced a weird combination of grief and liberty. The grief was for the familial bond I had always desired but never achieved. The emancipation came from finally accepting this fact and deciding to prioritize my own well-being. I spent the following 3 days preparing for our alternative party, including buying food, arranging activities, and making tiny homemade gifts for my pals. I purposefully kept myself occupied, knowing that idleness would only lead to uncertainty and second-guessing. 3 days before Christmas, my parents' lawyer responded to my certified letter rather than personally. It said coldly that I may make an appointment to pick up my stuff after the holidays, with a staff person there to monitor. The formal, impersonal quality of the response reaffirmed that I had made the correct decision. On December 23rd, I packed my car with gifts, food, and winter clothes, preparing to go to the Catskills the next morning. That night, I sat in my peaceful apartment, gazing at my Christmas tree, a modest but tastefully decorated fir that symbolized my independent lifestyle. For the first time since hearing my family's plans, I was entirely convinced of my decision. I was no longer ready to conform to their limited concept of success. I would no longer apologize for pursuing a path that led to fulfillment rather than status. I would no longer accept being considered as inferior because my dreams were different from theirs. Tomorrow would usher in a new tradition based on mutual respect and true affection rather than duty and appearances. As terrible as the rupture was, it seemed like the first genuinely authentic Christmas in my adult life. December 24th dawned bright and beautiful, ideal for the journey to the Catskills. The forecast forecasted snow later that evening, offering the white Christmas that everyone wishes for but rarely sees in the metropolis. I finished packing my car and took one final glance at my apartment, which was decked with handcrafted ornaments and natural garlands that my mother would have scorned as crafty instead of exquisite. Everything felt right. The journey upstate was pleasant, with holiday music playing and the scenery transitioning from urban to country. By lunchtime, I had arrived at the cabin, a magnificent timber edifice hidden among snow-dusted trees. Smoke was already rising from the chimney, indicating that someone had come before me. Emily raced through the front door as I parked, racing over to assist with my luggage. "Welcome to Freedom Christmas," she said with a grin. "Adam and I got here an hour ago to start the fire and unpack the groceries." The cabin's interior was everything a winter hideaway should be: high ceilings with exposed beams, a big stone fireplace with a roaring fire, comfy couches set up for discussion, and windows that showcased the woodland views. Adam was in the open kitchen, emptying grocery bags while Christmas music played gently from concealed speakers. "This is perfect," I replied, feeling my shoulders relax for the first time in days. Throughout the day, more arrived one by one. Noah sent cases of wine from his brother's vineyard. Claire arrived carrying her delicious handmade pies and bread. Two more buddies, Ryan and Caleb, arrived with extra food and decorations. By 4:30, our chosen family had arrived, and the cabin was full with laughing, delicious scents, and genuine warmth. No one inquired about my biological family until I brought it up. There were no uncomfortable queries concerning my business success or lack thereof. Nobody made veiled comments about my life choices or looks. The contrast with my family gatherings could not have been more striking. My phone started ringing exactly at 7 p.m. I had anticipated this, knowing that we would usually assemble for Christmas Eve appetizers at my parents' house about this time. Olivia placed the initial call. I took a step inside one of the bedrooms for privacy before responding. "Hello, Clara. Where are you now?" "Everyone's inquiring. Mom's freaking out." Her voice was more annoyed than concerned. "I'm not coming," I said simply. A pause. "What do you mean you won't come?" "Of course you are coming. The entire family is here. Grandmother Eleanor just inquired about you." I meant what I said. I will not be attending Christmas this year. You cannot simply not turn up. What should I tell everyone? This is so reckless, Clara. Just like your... She stopped herself, but I knew she was about to say, "just like your hobby business." "Tell them anything you want, Olivia. I'm confident you'll find a way to spin it while preserving the family image." She stammered with surprise at my directness. Before she could react, I added, "By the way, everyone's presents will be delivered this evening. I put a lot of thinking into it. I hope everyone enjoys them." I disconnected the call before she could react. Within minutes, my phone called again, this time from Ethan. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father received another voicemail. Finally, I received the call I had been anticipating and dreading. My mother. I took a big breath and responded. "Hello, Mother. Where are you, Clara Elizabeth Bennett?" Her voice was tense with repressed wrath. "I am celebrating Christmas elsewhere this year." "What do you mean by elsewhere?" "The entire family is here, waiting. The caterer has planned for our precise head count. Your grandma traveled in from London. This behavior is just inappropriate." "Is it?" I inquired, surprised at how peaceful I felt. What's more inappropriate than plotting to ambush and humiliate your daughter at Christmas dinner? What's more inappropriate than scheming to clean out her childhood bedroom while she sits at the table? What's more inappropriate than denigrating her profession as a pastime and her accomplishments as childish? There is dead stillness on the line. Afterward, "I have no idea what you are talking about." Of course she'd deny it. "I heard everything, Mother. Last weekend in Dad's study. You, Dad, Ethan and Olivia are preparing a small intervention with Ethan's buddy Stephen to embarrass me about my finances. They want to coerce me into leaving my business for a position at Dad's firm. I intended to tidy up my bedroom for cousin Vanessa while I went through your public humiliation." Another moment of quiet, followed by a tactical shift. "Clara, you misunderstood. We are anxious about your future. This intervention is motivated by love." I genuinely laughed, which surprised both of us. "Love? Was it love when you referred to my handcrafted jewelry as trinkets? Was it love when you likened my business to macaroni art on a refrigerator? Was it love when you stated I was humiliating the family since I did not have a corporate career like the Whitman's daughter?" "You were eavesdropping," she claimed, her tone tightening. "I was just about to knock on the door when I heard my name. And thank heavens I did, because I would have fallen into your trap. This is ridiculous. You're overreacting as usual. Just tell me where you are, and we can talk about it when you get here." There is nothing to discuss. I will not be attending Christmas or any other occasion where I am not treated as an adult making my own decisions. If you do not show up, your father will be furious. There will be consequences. The menace hovered in the air, but for the first time it had no effect on me. What exactly are the consequences? Cut me off financially? Since graduating, I have totally supported myself. Taking away my childhood bedroom? You are already preparing to do so. Harming the family's reputation? I'm sure you'll find a good tale to tell everyone about my absence. Clara, you are being dramatic. No, mother. I'm finally being honest. I deserve more than how this family treats me. I deserve to be respected for the business I've developed. I deserve to be supported in my decisions, even if they differ from yours. And because I can't get those things from you, I'm spending Christmas with those who appreciate me. On her end, I could hear voices in the background, most likely from family members who were concerned about the call. Your gifts will be delivered this evening, I explained. I spent months designing bespoke items for everyone. It is entirely up to you whether or not you enjoy them. This discussion is not over, she remarked, her tone chilly. It actually is. Merry Christmas, Mother. I hung up the phone and perched on the side of the bed, shivering slightly but feeling stronger than I had in years. Emily poked her head in after hearing a faint knock on the door. Is everything okay in here? We heard your voice becoming firmer. I smiled as she expressed her anxiety. It's actually better than okay. I recently confronted my mother for the first time in my life. She grinned and extended a glass of wine. Then I would say that calls for a celebration. When I rejoined the gathering, no one asked for specifics, but Noah lifted his glass in salute. To Clara, the most talented jewelry designer I know and the newest member of the Christmas cabin crew. As everyone clinked glasses, my phone vibrated with a text notice. To my amazement, it came from my brother Ethan. Not everyone agreed with the intervention approach. Call me when you're ready to speak. An hour later, the present delivery service confirmed that all goods had been safely delivered to my parents' home. I could only envision the scenario when each family member opened the beautifully made item I had created just for them, complete with a message explaining its significance and gently setting limits for any future connection, if one existed at all. For the first time in my life, I spent Christmas Eve precisely where I wanted, with people who entirely welcomed me. The weight of familial expectations that I had carried for so long had been removed, making room for something fresh and true to emerge. Our Christmas Eve celebration lasted well into the night. We made supper together, each taking control of a different dish in the large kitchen. Unlike the traditional catered events at my parents' house, this supper was collaborative and casual. Wine flowed freely, tales were swapped, and laughing filled the cabin. We ate at the long oak table by candlelight, passing food around family style rather than being served by workers. The talk flowed smoothly, with themes ranging from artistic endeavors to vacation ambitions to philosophical disagreements. No one was attempting to impress anyone or keep up appearances. It seemed authentic in a way that my family reunions never did. After supper, we gathered in the living room, where Adam had set the fire to a bright flame. Outside, snow was slowly falling, creating a picture-perfect Christmas scene through the enormous windows. Time for a new tradition, Emily said, pulling out a box of basic wooden decorations and creative tools. Every year, we each create a new ornament to commemorate something significant from the year. As we worked on our projects, exchanging materials and ideas, I felt a strong sense of belonging. My pendant was designed to resemble a bird exiting an open cage and was painted in glittering gold and deep blue. Nobody required me to explain the symbolism. Around 11:30 my phone buzzed with a text from my Aunt Patricia, my mother's sister. I just heard what occurred. Not everyone supports your parents' approach. Your grandma was very furious when she learned what they had planned. Your present was gorgeous. Thank you. A cousin sent another message shortly after. Your jewelry is amazing. I can't believe I never realized how talented you are. Family dinner was exceedingly uncomfortable when your mother informed you wouldn't be attending. There were many questions she did not want to answer. The messages lasted all night and into Christmas morning, December 26th. My departure appeared to have created just the situation my mother had feared, a rupture in her idyllic family story. Several relatives appeared to be rather loud in their condemnation of the intervention plan when it was made public. The meticulously crafted Bennett family image has developed substantial fractures. Christmas morning at the cottage was all I had imagined Christmas to be. We awoke slowly, gathered in pajamas around the tree to exchange the little, thoughtful presents we had brought for one another. Mine, of course, were pieces of jewelry that I had designed individually for each friend, expressing something important about their personality or our relationship. Claire sobbed as she unwrapped her necklace, a beautiful silver pendant with a little reproduction of the first ceramic item of hers that I had ever purchased. "This is why your business is successful," she remarked, wiping away tears. "You don't just make jewelry, you create meaning." After the presents, we prepared breakfast together before heading out for a stroll in the freshly fallen snow. The woodland was wonderful, with white trees and only our laughing and the crunch of snow beneath our boots for company. Uncle Daniel called me in the afternoon, which surprised me. I strolled outside onto the porch to take it, watching my breath create clouds in the frigid air. "Clara, I want you to know that I never supported that intervention nonsense," he stated abruptly. "Your business is legitimate and impressive." "Thank you, Uncle Daniel," I murmured, really moved. "That means a lot to me." "Things are quite tense here," he added. "When your gifts came yesterday night, they caused quite a commotion. Your grandma unwrapped her bracelet and proclaimed it to be of greater quality than her Tiffany items. Then she wanted to know why no one had informed her how successful your jewelry business had grown. I couldn't help but smile as I imagined my powerful British grandma standing by my side. The truth came out rather explosively over dinner," he explained. "Your mother attempted to minimize your absence, but your grandma is sharper than they gave her credit for. She extracted the whole intervention strategy, piece by humiliating piece. I've never seen her that angry." "What did my parents say?" I couldn't resist asking. "Your father returned to his typical justification, stating it was for your financial stability. Your mother alternated between supporting the idea and accusing you of overreacting. Neither strategy was very well received by the wider family. A weight I hadn't known I was still carrying was lifted from my shoulders. It was important that others in the family understood the inappropriateness of what had been planned." "There's something else you should know," Uncle Daniel explained, his voice softening. "I went through a similar experience with your grandpa when I chose architecture over entering the family company. It took him years to embrace my path, but he ultimately did. Don't rule out the prospect of reconciliation, but be strong in your limits." After we hung up, I rejoined my buddies inside and shared some of our talk. Their encouraging comments confirmed that I had made the right decision by selecting this genuine celebration above an appearance at my parents' immaculate but artificial event. Late that evening, as we sat around the fire playing board games and eating leftovers, my phone notified me of an email from Sterling and Sage. They checked my portfolio again and increased their first purchase by 40%. They also wanted to include me in their spring advertising materials as an upcoming designer to watch. I shared my phone around, receiving exuberant congrats, and knew that this chance would revolutionize my firm over the next year. The timing felt symbolic. This professional confirmation arrived just as I had ceased seeking acceptance from those who would never genuinely provide it. The irony wasn't lost on me. By rejecting my family's Christmas and their involvement, I made room for the exact type of achievement they said they want for me, although on my own terms, rather than theirs. As the night progressed and people retired to their rooms, I remained at the window, watching the snow fall. For the first time in my adult life, I felt entirely in sync with my own beliefs and decisions. The sorrow of familial rejection was still present, a subtle aching underneath the joy of the day, but it no longer defined me. I had chosen myself, and as a result, I realized that I was surrounded by those who had chosen me just as I was. January provided crisp, bright days and a new beginning. 6 weeks after the Christmas that changed everything, I stood in my new workshop space, which was double the size of my former studio, with wide windows for natural light and enough room for 3 helpers to work alongside me. The Sterling and Sage order had required the extension, and my designs would be prominently featured in their spring catalog, bringing them to a national audience. Since the introduction of our alliance, business inquiries have surged fourfold. I was no longer a struggling artist, but rather the proprietor of a thriving little business with real momentum. My family's circumstances has shifted in numerous ways since Christmas. As Uncle Daniel anticipated, various individuals reacted differently to my boundary establishing. My mother remained coldly professional in her occasional conversations, arguing that I had misinterpreted their intentions and overreacted. She had made up a narrative for her social circle about my absence during Christmas, something about an emergency with a key customer that simply couldn't wait. The story protected her image while eliminating my agency and choice not to go. My father had sought to establish authority in the only manner he knew how, by sending an email describing financial predictions for my company based on entirely incorrect assumptions about my sales and costs. The document contained a time frame for when I would need to accept reality and enter the corporate world. I answered with a concise but professional note, thanking him for his concern while assuring him that my company was profitable and expanding. I did not present data or facts that he may criticize or disregard. Olivia stayed distant, clearly aligned with our parents' viewpoint, but Ethan had reached out several times, each talk little more open than the previous one. During our most recent chat, he asked serious questions about my creative process and company plan, and he appeared genuinely interested in my responses. I never realized how much strategic thinking goes into what you do, he told me. It is not only about producing attractive things. You must foresee trends, manage production, and develop client connections. It's actually quite comparable to what I do, but in a very different business. This tiny acknowledgement that my job required actual business skills rather than merely an extended craft endeavor felt big coming from him. The most surprising revelation came from extended family members. My grandma had given me a handwritten note, expressing her enthusiasm for my business drive and superb workmanship, as well as an invitation to visit her in London. Several cousins had placed orders for unique works, seeing me as a professional rather than a family oddity. Regarding my childhood items, I had booked an appointment as directed by the lawyer's letter and appeared with Emily for moral support. To my astonishment, my mother was not present. She had arranged for Rosa, the housekeeper, to oversee instead. This modest act of compassion, which did not require me to confront my mother personally, was the closest thing to an acknowledgement of my sentiments that I could hope for. Rosa assisted me in packing things swiftly, occasionally sneaking in comments implying that she had always been an ally. "Your mother tried to donate your jewelry-making tools to the community center," she murmured at one point, but I told her they were expensive and she should wait until I made a decision. She wasn't knowledgeable enough about them to debate. The notebooks, photos and memorabilia were now kept in my apartment as physical memories of a childhood that had impacted me in both positive and unpleasant ways. I was gradually going through them, maintaining what still had meaning and letting rid of things I just cherished because they reflected family acceptance. My friends, my chosen family, have been unwaveringly supportive during this process. Our Christmas cabin party was so wonderful that we decided to make it an annual tradition. Several friends had scheduled appointments for therapy after seeing how I was working through my family issues with professional aid. Dr. Lang, my therapist, had helped me see that what happened at Christmas was not a failure, but rather a crucial phase in my development. "You set a boundary and held it despite enormous pressure and lifelong conditioning," she said during a recent session. "That is an achievement to be proud of." She was correct. Through this difficult process, I discovered strength that I had not realized I possessed. I'd created a business that mirrored my principles and ambitions. I built connections based on mutual respect, rather than duty. I'd learned to trust my own judgment about what success and contentment meant to me. Most significantly, I'd realized that leaving toxic settings, even if they're wrapped in family connections and holiday traditions, may make room for genuine joy and progress. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is refuse to participate in your own demise. As I set the equipment in my new studio, ready for a fruitful day of creation, I thought about how my life could have turned out differently if I hadn't overheard that talk. I might have spent many more years chasing acceptance that never came, shrinking myself to match standards that were never meant to accommodate who I actually was. Instead, that traumatic finding had opened a path to freedom. Not the freedom from family that my parents had promised as punishment, but the freedom to define my own worth, set my own boundaries, and live a life that reflected my ideals. The journey was far from ended. Family wounds do not heal in a single season, and behaviors formed over decades require time and work to modify. There would be more painful talks, more boundaries to uphold, and more sadness to mourn for the connection I desired but never fully had. But for the first time, I was approaching that trip as a full person, rather than as a constant letdown. I was Clara Bennett, a jewelry designer and company owner, and I was surrounded by people who noticed and cherished my entire personality. Last Christmas, the best present I gave myself was to go toward my own truth, rather than away from my family gathering. By deciding to appreciate myself, I was finally able to break free from the constraints of others' expectations and discover my own voice.